So, okay, so welcome to, we're starting. So, welcome to another happiness class, which we do in the world famous Hyde Park Corner, Speakers Corner in Hyde Park, Central London. And each week we talk about really practical issues using science to discuss all the things that affect our happiness at a sort of personal level and at a global level. And one of the special things I think we are doing here is we have people with different perspectives, and we don't get angry or be rude to each other. We just try to get to the nub of the matter. So today we'll be talking about a couple of issues. One is, does God hate gays? So I should go back a little bit. So do check out bigquestionsanswer.com for previous shows. There's a whole happiness course, and this week's one, happiness class 19, is about LGBTQ and whatever you want to call it afterwards. And we'll also be talking about so the two questions what you've got for regarding LGBTQ is, does God hate gays? And the other one is, why limit people's gender freedom? And then that's followed by, is money addictive or designed to be addictive? And finally, why do we damage or harm our own home planet? And so for each of them we're going to be talking for about 15 minutes. And just to give you a sense of the different kind of backgrounds, I'm a Muslim, and we've got Dust, who's agnostic, and we're going to have people of all sorts of backgrounds, hopefully homosexuals, whichever pigeonhole you'd like to be put in, and let's just get started. So, I'd like to give a brief presentation of a few ideas, and then I'm really interested in people telling me how I'm possibly wrong. That would be really interesting for me. Okay, so does God hate gays? My starting point as a Muslim is that I've been brought up, and this is exactly in line with Islam, love for all and hatred for none. Okay, because Prophet Muhammad never hated on anybody, he just suggested what would be good for people. That's it. It's kind of like a doctor says something, he's not hating on you if he says cancer is hurting you in this way, take X medicine. That's all it is. And at the same time, Islam preaches freedom of faith or conscience, so you can do whatever you want. At the same time, I'm not going to change what I think is helpful to society. So here are just the two brief ideas that I want to put forward before I give people a chance to talk. And one is that there's a general misunderstanding that homosexuality is genetic, and that is not understood by scientists. There's too often there's the public idea of what people like to believe versus what the science actually says. So how do we know homosexuality is not genetic? Well, there's evolutionary biology, and what that has done is decided you can decide what is genetic and what's not by looking at pain and pleasure. So, for example, why do we enjoy eating food? Because it's a form of pleasure that tells us we should keep eating food, otherwise we will die out. That's evolutionary biology. The same with, if I simply walk backwards instead of forwards, I'm going against my design and I harm myself and I start hurting when I walk backwards. The same with sex. Why do we have pleasure? Why is so much pleasure attached to sex? Because if we didn't do it, our humanity would die out. So that's one idea, and that shouldn't be undervalued. Like, look at how complex the human sexual organs are. To think that they were designed randomly or without any purpose, and then you could do anything you want with your sexual organs and have no side effects is a bad idea. So part of the pain part of the equation, as it were, is that if you misuse your sexual organs, we can see nature hitting back and saying, well, you're going to have sexual disease, HIV, STDs, and that's not just limited to homosexual behavior. That includes people who are, let's just say, having sex randomly with different people without taking care of the offspring, okay, which isn't good for humanity. If you don't take care of your children, that's not good. And so nature fights back against that, and you'll see that people who have sex with lots of short-term relationships tend to have more STDs. So that's just that. And the second point, before I let go of the mic, is that being homosexual is not a fixed part of your nature. So you can see that, for example, in prisons. When you go to prison, you see that a lot more people are homosexual. You can see in different environments. So, for example, you see priests who choose to be celibate, which I think is an unnatural choice, okay, and in the attempt to keep that secret, they end up doing things like either homosexual behavior or become, what's the other word, have sex with children, because that way it's not obvious what they've done. If you have sex with a woman and you make her pregnant, it's quite obvious that you've, been having sex secretly as a priest. So there's a lot of things like that, and so my point in that is that there's two main ideas that are wrong, which is, first of all, being homosexual is genetic, or you're born like that. That's not true, because that's going against our, evolutionary biology. And the second is that you're not fixed in one particular sexual orientation.
Thank you for that, and it is of great interest what you've said. I'm going to come from a different point of view, which is an evolutionary agnostic concept of homosexuality, which is that, firstly, it must be very clear to understand that if you're consenting adults, then therefore your actions in the sexual realm should be regarded as beautiful, human, natural, and essential to our evolved species. So evolution, this is a vital facet of understanding here. Our attributes as human beings have all evolved over billions of years, from mammals to what we are now. Therefore, it has incredible purpose having a gay community. It's incredible purpose because evolution has made it so. And it's made it so because it means we have diversity in our communities. And diversity in our communities is what keeps us interested in life, engaged in life, creates new ideas for the improvement of a culture, a society, and a race as being the human race. So it's from an evolutionary perspective, gay sex or any sex of any nature, assuming it's not illegal as in paedophilia, of course.
Sure. My problem with that is...
Almost finished. And for the reason why this hatred of the gay community has always existed is because the church in the West has seeking to divide communities and find the weakest in communities, and therefore have used the weakest members of our community as a fundraising exercise to fear the gay community and therefore attack the gay community. And while they're doing that, they're creating political power and wealth from that fear and anxiety. And the AIDS thing, by the way, the AIDS was deliberately spread around this world by pharmaceutical companies who were taking blood plasma from prisons in America, who then sold plasma infected with AIDS, HIV, and hepatitis B and other horrible sexually transmitted diseases. This was spread on purpose, which is still ongoing cases in the UK in our legal system. They're still being tried to be prosecuted, people in that process.
I just wanted a brief point response to, before I'm going to welcome you in a second because I really value your opinion, but I just didn't hear a response to the fact that in genetics every pain and pleasure is designed for a purpose. So if you've got a very well designed reproductive system, okay, and the point of that pleasure is to encourage you to do that thing. So if you misuse it, you're going to get kickbacks or your nature fighting back as it does with STDs and all that kind of stuff. You haven't really responded to the design argument.
STDs is not just a gay community phenomenon. It's every sexual activity is prone to such.
Not every though. Like I also said that beyond homosexuality, if you are freely having sex with lots of people, that's not good for the upbringing of the next generation, and therefore that gets penalised by nature.
But that's a different subject now. We're talking about the gay community, and I'm responding to the fact that, firstly, AIDS was deliberately spread, which I know somebody who was just a heterosexual man who died from AIDS because of the plasma transfusion because he had haemophilia. But the evolutionary sense, if being gay was ever an issue at all on any level regarding reproduction and the survival of the species, we wouldn't be here now if that was even a remote possibility. Evolution's happened over billions of years. Therefore, we are alive and doing pretty well with all our different variations of sexuality. All of it's wonderful, brilliant, and should be encouraged. But it's got to be consenting adults, and without that, right?
Cool. So, thank you very much. What's your name? So I understand. Robert.
And I know he doesn't want to be in camera.
Oh, you don't want to be on camera? Oh, you changed my mind. Cool, thank you. So, first of all, I really appreciate you taking part, and hopefully you agree that I won't bite your head off at all, because I'm really interested in what you've got to say, and I appreciate you being here.
Yes,
so,
I'll try and have respect for you. I've raised the temperature many times at Speaker's Corner, and I've gone off the deep end many times. Well, I'll start with a bit of my life history.
What was your response to the idea that our human organs are incredibly well designed, and if we misuse it, then nature's going to be fighting back?
I brush that aside, really. And your business about is it genetic? And you say it is not. There are scientists who would argue the opposite to that. So where are we on that? What I need to say is I'm 85 years of age. The first 30 years of my life, it was a criminal offence in this country. I always told my mother I would never break the law. So I had to keep the law in those. When I grew up from 18 to 30 or whatever it was, I was 2 when Britain and France declared war on Germany, 2 years old.
Sure, so I understand that. I agree it's not good to persecute.
I've got to dress it up a bit to make you understand where I'm coming from.
Sure, okay. So I agree that you shouldn't be persecuted.
Whatever the construction of the anatomy, etc., etc., it doesn't matter a damn. I am by nature a homosexual. Nothing else will change me in 85 years. Sorry, 70 years. When I was born, when I first knew of it, when I was 15, and I had my first masturbation. I'm using proper terms today. It would be other terms I would use in normal circumstances.
So I agree with you that you can feel that you're homosexual. I agree that all sorts of feelings.
I don't think there's much doubt about that.
I'm just saying
40 odd years ago. My sisters and brothers and nephews and nieces, everybody knows that I'm homosexual.
Okay, sure.
And there must be 100 people here.
What's your experience?
Come across me.
What is your experience with religion?
Well, religion is religion.
Have they supported you, or have they condemned you?
Not always. I know you want me to open up on this, and to be fair,
this is what the conversation's about.
Yes, to be fair, I must open up a little bit. I can't really quite get. I must close that down and start again. Regarding religion, let's face it. Religion has not always been helpful with regard to gay people. It's in the Bible. I believe it says in the Bible somewhere that gay people are stoned to death. Stoned to death. We hear people talking about the Bible here all day long. Yeah. Stoned to death. Sorry if I'm getting excited.
Sure. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Right.
That hasn't been helpful, but I must add, times are changing. I've got two. I've got 4 letters in my possession. 2 from archbishops. I could name them if I got time. 2 from bishops, all having a sympathetic.
Sure. So I'm going to respond to that because so I understand from Christianity they're very, let's say, flexible, but Islam is not, right? But at the same time, Islam teaches that there's no compulsion in matter of religion. So it's what your faith or what you would. Sure, you can do whatever you want. I can't force you either way, right? But at the same time, it's important to have a position of what makes. So the reason why we're talking about it is basically happiness, right? Does this make if you have lots of people who are homosexual, does it make society happier? And just based on psychology, and let me ask you a question: I don't know, did you have a father figure growing up?
I had a father.
Right. Now, if you had a missing father, would that be troubling?
I can't answer all those.
Sure. Generally speaking.
That's for the psychologists.
Sure. So exactly. And what do psychologists say? They say if you have a missing father figure, which could possible if you have, say, 2 lesbian mothers, just for example, then you will have missing parts of. It does have a detrimental effect on your upbringing.
My 2 brothers were heterosexual.
And it's just. I think it's very. I think I'll give you a chance, but I'm just saying, just to finish off my argument, it's just if we. Oh, okay. So it's a very natural argument that if it takes a man and a woman to make a child, then if everything is incredibly well designed, it makes sense that if one of them are missing, you're going to miss in your upbringing. But I'd like you to tell the last say. Go for it.
There's no such thing as a predetermined outcome for anything. For instance, the nearest animal to a human being is the bonobo ape, by far the nearest. The bonobo ape's a very social animal, and they're all of them bisexual. There's homosexual activity and there's heterosexual activity, and there's no morality involved, because morality didn't and doesn't really exist. Morality is an invention by human beings, mainly from the religious part of human beings. Before religion, before the agricultural revolution, when human beings were rather like bonobo apes, they actually roamed as hunter-gatherers without any hierarchy or religion or anything. They all acted naturally. There was bound to have been, and of course I wasn't there, no one had, there was bound to have been homosexual activity as well as heterosexual activity. But doesn't change the fact that human beings still evolved, still reproduced, and got plenty of human beings around today without having to worry about whether someone's homosexual or not. It's entirely up to the individual what they want to do with it. As long as they don't harm anyone else, there's no reason why they shouldn't do what the hell they like to do. It doesn't harm anyone, so don't get upset about it.
Sure. So thank you very much for that, and I appreciate you expressing your views to the full, and I'd like you to have the last say on this topic, because we're going to move on to the next one. But I do recommend the people watching this video, if you go to bigquestionsanswer.com, get involved in the conversation, and I'm usually responding to the conversations in the comments, so that'll be very interesting. Let's move on to the next question. Can you help me out, actually? I'm really...
You focus on the camera.
Yeah.
You talk to the camera.
So the next topic we got is why limit people's gender choices, is a way of phrasing it. How did I put it? Why deny gender freedom? So that's why you're here. That's why we've invited you. Okay, so I'll give people a chance in a second, but I'll just throw in a couple of ideas, right? Okay, so this problem of gender choices is not a new one. It hasn't come from the sort of the transsexual debate. It's gone way before that, where people are confused about their gender roles, and I think that's been massively destructive to the family unit, and that's why in modern Western societies family units barely function anymore. But let me just quickly explain a few kind of points here. So what is this term about gender? Gender is just a feeling, and it's been brought upon by one person who's particularly interested in making what you call what politely sounds like a nice operation, gender reassignment. Rather, before that it was called something like human sexual organ mutilation, and it was so horrible that they had to make it sound better. Okay, so really, it's a question of people feel a certain way, and do you really have an operation based on your feelings? So, for example, if I am bulimic or anorexic, okay, so that means I feel like I'm really fat when you're actually skinny. That doesn't mean I should have an operation so that I'm fattened up. I should look at my actual anatomy and see what's working, what's not. So I just wanted, did you want to have what's his name again? Did you want to give your point of view? Because I saw you put your hand going up.
What your definition of gender would be. So it says, why deny gender freedom?
Yeah.
What is gender?
Just a feeling, really, a temperament, so a long-term feeling, maybe. But I don't think it's a particularly scientific term.
Okay. Well, then I would agree with you. I mean, if gender is a feeling, as you described, then you can't deny the freedom to it. It's a feeling. We have the freedom to feel how we feel. I think it's how we conduct ourselves is where the real issue would be. We can't control people's feelings. We shouldn't even try to do that.
100% I agree. So I don't at all ever believe in forcing my opinions on other people. My concern is for individual and societal happiness to just educate people as best as I can. So one incredibly dangerous thing that's happening at the moment are children are going through surgery that are having long-term, but basically permanent damage to their bodies, and I don't think that's to be looked upon lightly. It's a dangerous thing to do. But beyond that, even before these surgeries were happening, I think the destruction of the family unit, because of the lack of understanding about, or lack of belief of what might be termed traditional roles, I think they're incredibly important. Well, people don't understand the knock-on effect. So, for example, in the 1950s, when women started going more to work and not fulfilling their roles, cooking food, etc., that had a knock-on effect that ended up causing what you see as global warming. How is that? Because people stopped cooking at home, and there's a great TED talk which is inadvertently talking about this. People stopped cooking at home and started buying frozen food, and frozen food means shipping food from around the world full of rubbish ingredients, and things have knock-on effects basically.
So it's a long stretch between that and gender identity, but I understand the basic concept. But you said something about surgery and sexual reassignment surgery for children.
Yeah.
The one thing that I think is most bothersome about that is that it's something that cannot be reversed. And if it's with a child and the child makes that decision, as parents, we love our children, we want to support them. I think it's best that a child be of an age where they can make an informed, consenting decision before they go on to doing something that can't be reversed. And then that's a feeling for me. People may disagree with me on that, and there may be scientific studies that back up the opposition. But nevertheless, my concern would be for the whole well-being of the person who undergoes that procedure and what happens when they do it and it can't be undone.
I think we should all feel like that. We should all feel concerned for people, even if they're not our own children, generally for societal well-being, and that's, I think, it's a good thing to have, whatever your position. Anyway,
quick one, if I may, yes. This is a very complicated subject, and as a gay man, you'd think I'd know a bit more about it than I actually do. But it is rather complicated, and that we've had a debate with the two leaders trying to become prime minister. Several of them, 5 or 6 at start. And there's Penny Mordaunt, who's got a gay brother and is very liberal. She was in Parliament talking about the state of the law at the time, which was this gender situation where it was all right to switch over, and that was that. That man becomes a woman. Now she's rode back on that, and she's now saying that she's a biological woman herself. Every inch of her body is biologically a woman, and she's changed her mind. So she says she can.
So do you agree with her? Do you agree that you're a woman if you got so let me ask you a direct question. If you got male sexual organs and you feel like a woman, are you a woman?
Well, you can go through.
Yes or no?
Well, it's not. You must not. I'm a politician in a way. You mustn't pin me down on those.
Oh, okay, no answer then.
I know a lovely lady called Naomi who was a man and who had a genitalia removed. She explained it to the public and to the Catholic stand over there as clear as daylight.
Sure.
she
I just
had
want to
a
add.
Yes, we
I-
can picture.
Okay, sure. Go on.
I think it's very important that.
So that was that. Then I know of another.
Okay,
one.
his turn.
Just a quick finish. Another friend in the gay bar, which I've been going to for 55 years, and is not worth tuppence any longer. It's more or less gone. Anyway, I met a woman in there. Oh, sorry, a man in there who he went through this change of this surgery and so on, and he was wobbling his breast.
Okay, no, next.
Thank you.
No.
Finish. He got stuck halfway
Yeah,
through.
yeah,
Changed
yeah.
his mind.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Thank you very much. That was very constructive sarcasm.
Yeah.
But the point you made earlier was very important, though, just to clarify that. We just want to be succinct on this video because we don't have infinite time, and also
He doesn't like me getting excited.
so we're going to go 5 minutes. So it's very important to realise this, that when children, I think that it's absolutely very clear that it's completely overblowing what's going on there. Completely just and whatever the agenda is going on behind that is very
Shall we
disturbing.
step back so people can see what we're talking about? This is what the topic is.
It's very disturbing that they're using maybe 1-2 cases of the whole population of America or the West as some sort of, this is the gold standard. Let's be very clear here that there's huge amounts of psychology that goes into the question, do you really want to have a sex change? It isn't just you wake up one morning and go, all right, feeling female, now's my time to have a sex change. None of that ever happens in reality. The reality is that there is lots of doctors involved, lots of psychology involved, and then and only then does what the question of removing and the procedure and the facets required for a sex change. But let's be also very clear that if you feel like a woman and do choose to have that sex change, then that is the individual's choice. It's not the rest of a government or society to judge somebody that's clearly demonstrated on every level that they feel like they're in the wrong sex in their body. And also, just to clarify another point that was brought up, you can have gay couples as a solid and sound family. You can have couples that are gay that bring up children just to be as wonderful and giving and talented and contribute to society as any unit bringing up a child. And there is no question about that, because I think as America has demonstrated that marriage and heterosexual couples are just capable of horrific acts, as any family member are capable of horrific acts. I almost finished.
Sure.
It's down to the person that creates a horrible situation for not only a family but a community. It isn't anything to do with the sexuality or of that nature.
So I just want to throw in one or two. Do you want to say anything? Okay, so anyway, so my quick few points, and I'll let you jump in and have the last word. I always like having other people have the last word. Is that I'm really concerned about people suffering from body image issues, and I think that's kind of the underlying cause here. That people are, especially women, have been over-sexualized because of their appearance, and then they feel really uncomfortable because if they're not feminine enough and all this kind of stuff. And I would say, and there have been studies done on this, that people in countries where women are more covered up, they don't have the same body image issues. Like if you're, like even if I was forced to wear clothes that show off my bodily parts and I had to always look my best all the time, I would feel uncomfortable and lacking in confidence, and then I might question, am I manly enough? Maybe I should be something else. And I think that's one of the major problems behind this, and I think that's one thing we should be dealing with rather than getting people to have surgeries really quickly. And the other point about people, there's lots of surgeons going around and making sure that surgery is not done by accident, psychologists. From what I understand, there's a new default, which is if you feel like you're a woman when you're a man, which the psychologists are being told to agree with it. So I'm not sure if that's 100% true, but
Having a psychologist.
that's what I've understood from a clinical psychologist called Jordan Peterson. Maybe he's lying, but I doubt he's lying on video. But anyway.
Jordan Peterson is a man of extreme capabilities, but fundamentally he uses his talents to confuse reality, not actually confirm how reality is for an individual and the true feelings that an individual feels if they generally feel it in the wrong body. I mean, it's just not a whim. It's implied that it's some whimsical thought that an individual.
Sure. So you're saying he's very clever at manipulating people.
He and others of that nature are incredibly.
I wanna. So my friend here, would you like to say something?
It depends on how you define gender, because there's a scientific gender.
So in the beginning, we just said it was basically a feeling, and what I consider it not a not scientific term.
There are two possibilities. If you consider male and female, scientifically, a male is a male. No matter what you do to him, he remains a male, and the female, whatever you do to her, she remains a female. So scientifically, that is a fact.
So sex is sex, but how is sex different to gender?
I haven't finished. But if you define gender by how people feel, that's a totally different thing. Because if a man feels like a woman, it doesn't make him a woman, but he feels like a woman, and he can act like a woman, he can dress as a woman, he can do all the things he wants to do, and be in his mind at least a woman. He may not be accepted as a woman by some people, but that's his problem. Same with a woman. If she wants to become a man, she can do what she can. She can to become a man, although she can't really. But there we are. And if she dresses like a man, she'll be treated like a man by some people, not by others, because it's simply a question of identification of the individual, how they feel, but also it's also a question of a scientific fact that a man is a man and a woman is a woman.
So I think we generally agree that there's a thing called sex and another thing called gender, and gender is quite a different thing and a bit ambiguous.
In regard to sex, a person is not born with a determined sexual feeling. He's born as a boy or a girl, but he doesn't develop, or she doesn't develop as a sexual being until much later in their life. When I say much later, in their early primary school.
So you're getting into homosexuality, but I want to stick with gender. When you say that, if you're born with male sexual organs, are you more likely to behave like a man or not?
It depends on your environment, because people's environment determines almost everything about the way they behave.
So did you know that even like you were talking about different kind of monkey, and I can't remember them vaguely, what was the type of monkey you said? Bonobo, right? So they talk about at least chimpanzees, right? But anyway, even different kinds of apes, if they're born female, they do things like they're more attracted to other children, and they even carry bits of wood as if they're babies, like human girls are attracted to dolls.
No, because animals, apart from human beings, all other animals act and behave the way that they do because they're fixed in a very, very predetermined situation. A gorilla or an ape or whatever animal remains that because the animal does not and cannot change its environment. Human beings are the one exception. Because human beings can change their environment, they become susceptible to all sorts of influences, and influences that are creative influences, artistic influences, whatever. If a person like a boy becomes affected by the fact that he has female feelings, then they may become a homosexual.
So you're basically saying
they want to become a woman, but that depends on their environment.
So you're saying that your environment could affect how you behave, but what about your environment within? So I think that there are no accidents in our very complicated and well-organized design. I mean, Yeah, I do believe in God, but I think it's very reasonable to believe in God given the incredible design, right? Okay, so my point is that if we have, say, male sexual organs, it means a whole bunch of other things like testosterone levels and how your body functions and all millions and millions of other things, and that does affect your behavior, and we shouldn't deny that at least. So anyway, 1 minute on that.
Dogs mounting human beings regularly.
Yeah, I think that's a different
I think
topic.
you've peaked.
Okay, so
I think you've peaked.
so let's move on to the next one. Could you? Okay, yes, go on. You go.
And then,
Yeah,
all right.
you take control.
We've had some wonderful debates so far, and I would like to thank everybody for contributing as great, noble members of Speakers Corner and the great tradition that we have here of debate. So the next question is money designed to be addictive? This is an incredibly important question to have in any society throughout the majority of our cultural history over 3,000 years. Because I think for a long time, money was definitely designed to become an addiction. And first, let's just define what an addiction is. An addiction is that you are dependent as a human being to function with a said substance, be it heroin or an idea or, in this case, money, to live. And if you don't have that access to that substance or this material substance, then you will die or perish or suffer in terrible pain and torment. So just look at the Jordan Peterson. He became a drug addict to cope with his pressures of life, and got to a point where if he didn't have the drug, he would literally physically die. Now, I believe exactly the same thing can be said by money. If you do not have money, then you will literally die in this capitalist society that we live in. So I'm referring to capitalism, of course, as being the overlords, the designer of what money is, rather than just a transaction between goods being passed between two people. It is designed to be as I said, an addiction, meaning that education is denied to you. You live in pain and suffering and bewilderment and without education, and the capitalists designed it so that money is required just to become a human being, to grow and understand the communities and families and different religions and sexualities. Money we are dependent to overcome these boundaries. Well, that is in a terrible situation to be in, that water, food, education and other vital facets of human nature needed to survive are denied you if you don't have money. People die in famines. This is designed on purpose by capitalism, that has deemed that if you have money, then you will be able to live as a human being, but you must be addicted to money. Therefore, do any act necessary to have more money, because without it, as I've just described, you live a terrible life. All designed in the capitalist system. Anybody like to contribute into that?
So I will start off with the idea that, well, money is an inanimate object. You cannot be addicted to it. In fact, it's a very functional. It has a great function, which makes it really easy to buy and sell things. Otherwise, you'd have to buy and sell things with carrots, and if you don't like carrots, I can't buy your phone. I can't get the iPhone. So money is highly functional, but I can see how it can be addictive in the sense that what it enables you to do is just buy more and more things. So the real addiction is not the money, okay? And I'm a big believer in blaming ourselves rather than blaming other things, including inanimate objects, so like money. So what I believe is that materialism is an addictive goal or something. So you'll find that every time you buy, let's say, an iPhone, you buy the iPhone 6, and you go, oh, iPhone 7's come out, I really need that, and I won't be happy until I get that thing. So that's a never-ending goal. And so I'll give you a chance in a few seconds. I like to remind people that all my ideas are coming from the Quran, and there's a beautiful description of this particular situation when it describes, let's say, the non-spiritual endeavor, which you could call materialism, as a chasing of the mirage. So a mirage, as you might know if you've ever been to a desert or really hot area, is sort of something you chase, which is in the distance, and you think it looks like water, and if you're really thirsty, you'll be really desperate to get it. But as soon as you get there, it's nothing. It disappears. The illusion disappears, and that's exactly what materialism is like. You keep thirsting for something that you're missing, and then you don't get it because it's always in the distance. And as soon as you get that thing, the illusion is shattered. So that's the danger.
If it's coming quickly, then I'll come straight over to you.
Yeah.
But it's not a mirage to want food. I think it's an absolute necessity, or water. And yet, without money, in lots of countries, you're left to die en masse in horrific situations where families, mothers and fathers, are watching their children die off simply because there's not enough food, when we all know that there's gross amounts of food available. It's just you're only allowed access to this gross amount of food if you have the money.
You want a tour? Oh, okay, go on. Yeah.
Another word for money is capital.
Yeah.
And we live in a capitalist society, which started around about 1648. Before that, money was less important. Before that, people tended to eat from the land, the peasants from the land, and the money was less important. Even before that, and going right back to the agricultural revolution, money simply didn't exist at all. So all of these problems you say we have today are specifically because we live in a capitalist society, which is an economic, political and social society. So therefore, if you do away with the capitalist system, I'm not saying what you should replace it with, although I have my own ideas. If you do away with the capitalist system, you do away with all these desires to have a phone every 6 months and a car every year and all this acquisitive. You call materialism, which is not materialism. Materialism is a philosophical concept meaning solid things. What you call materialism is the efforts and the pressure of a capitalist society, which we all are pressurized by. Even those that are against this capitalist society, as I am, I still have a mobile phone. I still have to buy things. I still have to make money. So unfortunately, we are victims of a capitalist society. And as we're victims, that is why we have all these problems.
So, you want to go next?
I want to clarify that. Your observations that we are forced to live in a capitalist society are absolutely correct. We live in a dictatorship. We have no vote over what we're allowed to spend our money on, because advertising circumvents our rationality. And when as I mentioned earlier, without education, which we are denied if you don't have money, then how can we make rational free will choices about the world we live in? If we are punished for not being of a particular religion by saying, well, there's only one religion left for you then, that means, which is capitalism. If you don't want to be Christian or Jewish or Muslim, then we're going to make you and force you to become capitalist. There are other ways of being a human being that can contribute wonderfully to families, communities and society. And money is designed to be addictive at every single level of the creation, and how the World Bank functions and operates, which dictates which products and processes must happen in your country. The World Bank dictates this. It uses money as the golden rule, as a understanding of not the wealth of money, but the wealth of your heart as a human being. That should never be linked. Those never should be linked.
Are you saying how much time we got left for this one, or you want to make a comment?
Has there been examples of societies actually living successfully without money?
So that's a great question, because I think we've experimented with communism lots of times and with disastrous results. The most murders, the most poverty, and so the difference is either you get the government to decide the price of things, which is terrible, because you can't get the government to decide the price of millions and millions of products, or you get individuals who are buying and selling the product, and that's capitalism. And so I think there was I would say, incorrect question when you said if you don't have enough money to buy food. We're not disagreeing that people should have food. In fact, we had an earlier discussion where we agreed that there should be a baseline level of, food, shelter, water, basic needs met, and that's what government should do, right? Okay, but above that, money itself doesn't harm people. We need to take responsibility and stop thinking we're victims and pretending there's some utopian. We love to push these utopian ideals that don't exist. Just like you said, communism has been an experiment people have tried so many times and has failed.
I have to say something here.
Amish.
The human beings have been on this earth for about 1 million years, and that's a conservative estimate. Can I go on? Human beings have been on this earth for 1 million years. Until the last 13,000 years, which is that, human beings didn't have. Human beings didn't have money, and they lived in a communalistic society, a communist society. For 1 million years, human beings lived in a communist society. It was only in the agricultural revolution in 13,000 years ago that all of this shit that we have to put up with nowadays is happening. Before that, human beings lived in a natural environment without any wars or any problems whatsoever. And as for the modern communism, which is supposed to have started in 1917 in Russia, modern communism, which started in 1917, was destroyed by the capitalist encirclement in the world. Capitalism destroyed communism. That's why communism didn't work.
What do you want to say?
That I think that capitalism is. I think that there is an economic system that works well actually, but the capitalism I think that is the worst. In any country in the world, I think that the communism work well, but I think that a real communism. In a real communism, I think that it will work better than the capitalism, because the capitalist system is what you say, that is all the things is economic, but also political, is misogyny, is racism, it's all the things together, is all the system.
That's exactly what I was saying.
My only brief comment is, if we got rid of money, we would be reduced to the Stone Age again, because we won't be able to make anything. Because to make a single phone, you need so many components and so much trade that nothing would work anymore.
I'm going to round up this conversation. The universities fund most of the technology in iPhones, which means it's done by public, not by capitalism. Capitalism hasn't developed the iPhone. They've just developed the need for a new iPhone. That's what capitalism does. It develops you need to have a new one. But it was universities and, unfortunately, militaries as well that have contributed to the most of the intellectual property rights within inside a. To summarise, we're not talking about, because you criticise money doesn't mean you're talking about communism. It just means we're trying to have a discussion about what world we can live in. But it doesn't mean anything to do with communism. It means having a frank and open discussion. We should talk about communism, though, at another one of our questions. We did slightly go off topic, but thank you very much. So we are now moving over to, thank you everybody for contributing. Please feel to contribute more. We now, ladies and gentlemen, have a new question. And the question is very relevant with the heat waves at the moment, I think you agree upon. Why, ladies and gentlemen, are we destroying our planet? Now I'll give a brief summary on that and then open it up to the audience. This question was, by the way, donated to us by a 40-year-old pupil of mine, yeah. And I think this is very significant. Now, I'm not criticising the 14-year-old here. I'm criticising people who word the sentence as displayed, which is common in society. This sentence was designed by the billionaires because it says, why are we destroying this planet? We have no choice over how we interact during our everyday proceedings. We have no power over capitalism's need to have oil being pumped every single day. We have no power over our governments who are owned by these capitalists. There was a newspaper article just the other day which said over the last 50 years the oil companies collectively have made pure profit to the total of 52 trillion pounds. 52 trillion pounds. What can you do with that money? If it wasn't just spent on war and denying human beings their capability of forming and function, you could buy on free university for every single human being over that time period. Free health care, free education to understand not only yourself but different communities. We do not have any say over this planet and the fact it's being destroyed, because we would like to have electric cars, a new phenomenon. And guess what? We now only just had an opportunity to buy electric cars, where the first cars ever been made were electric. But only now have we now just had a choice. And guess what? Guess what, ladies and gentlemen? We are choosing to buy electric cars, hands over fist. They cannot produce enough, they being Tesla, and Tesla only, by the way. So that's the proof that we've never had a choice, and the bleating glimpse of a choice, be it electric car, we're buying them en masse. So the question here is, yes, they are destroying the planet, not we.
Okay, I'll just go over a brief one and then give you a chance, okay? So, I think if you want to look at most of the problems in the world, all you have to do is look in the mirror. We are the problem, right? So, we are endlessly consuming more than we need to the extent that we give ourselves all these first world problems like diabetes by eating too much and buying endless material things that we don't need. And it's not because we're poor or anything, we've got enough money to buy things we don't need, so that shows something, okay? I think the crux of the problem is a lack of inner peace. And when we lack inner peace, what we do is we just try to consume more and more to fill that void. And the way we're going to overcome that, and this is not just a religious point of view, this is what psychologists have said, is just that we need a higher purpose or greater meaning to life. And the great Viktor Frankl, which is a psychologist of great repute, the kind of level of Freud, he said that if you were to find your super purpose or super meaning, you would essentially, religion helps you find that super meaning, that great meaning to live your life by, that fills that void.
No, the problem is that you're blaming the victims. The people behind all this horrific situation is the capitalists and the capitalist class. Now, the problem with capitalism, and has always been the problem since Marx's day, is that it overproduces to a massive degree.
Speak up, we can't hear you. Speak up, we can't hear you.
And the reason... And
we are recording this, so you can watch it on that video afterwards. We want it live.
Yes.
Just carry on.
The overproduction of capitalism is essential for capitalism to exist because it has to make profit. In order to make profit, it has to destroy. In order to destroy, it has to get rid of all the stuff that they've already sold in order to produce more stuff to sell again, to continue their profits. Now, they'll go to war over this. They'll go to kill people by the millions in order to preserve their profits, in order to preserve the capitalist system. And by doing so, war is the perfect capitalist activity, because you destroy and then you can rebuild, and you destroy and you rebuild, and profits are being made all of the time. It's not our fault. It's not our fault. We're the victims. We're the working class. We're the ones that actually do all the work. But we have to carry on working for the capitalists. That's not our.
Thank you very much. You mentioned electric cars there. Can you tell me where the lithium comes from for the batteries in the electric cars?
Yes, the lithium is one of the most common materials on the planet. Virtually everywhere on the planet has lithium in it. The only problem is just creating the manufacturing process big enough to extract such a common material as lithium. And Tesla have already patented new extractions. It's just literally a matter of will. But in America, you have enough lithium for all the batteries you would ever need. The only issue is that capitalism said, we're not going to invest money in technologies which help this planet. We're going to invest purely in technologies which destroy this planet.
Are there lithium mines in Africa?
As I said, there's lithium everywhere on the planet.
Is that a yes or a no?
Well, I think I've answered that question.
I think maybe what you're getting at, tell me if you're right, I'm making the right point, is
cobalt?
Okay, cobalt, well, yeah, maybe. Yeah,
No,
so...
it's not.
But okay, where the point is? The point is that is there oppression of the poor people to mine these materials, and they don't get their fair deserts for their hard work? Maybe, and yes, so maybe capitalism, without morality, can take advantage of lots of people. But I just want to make a really interesting point, which I agree with you, about a certain form of capitalism which has been prohibited in Islam and Judaism and supposedly Christianity if it followed the Bible, and that would be interest-based capitalism. Why is that so important? Because it links I actually agree with two things you said. You linked overproduction and war. Okay, that's exactly what the Quran suggests what will happen if you indulge in interest-based capitalism. That makes you borrow money so that you have to produce stuff, but then you have to create more than you had before to repay the bills. So when you borrow money on interest, you have to pay more money than you had back. So you have to create more than ever before, and that's why in modern economies, GDPs, the gross domestic product, has to always increase, which is completely unrealistic because the economy should match what you create from the land, and it's completely unrealistic to forever into infinity keep creating. That's one thing. And also another thing the Quran predicts about the damage interest will do is it will encourage wars. Why? Because wars are incredibly expensive, billions and trillions of pounds a day, right? And the only way you can do that, well, I'm just saying...
Just stay on the question, just push it towards the question.
Okay, so why are we destroying... Okay, yeah, good point. So, when you have an interest-based economy, which is not just plain capitalism, what that does is it encourages you to mine the world endlessly and also have wars which are clearly destructive to the planet, especially if it's nuclear.
Yeah, there are different forms of capitalism, you're right. Britain, for instance, was a manufacturing capitalist country, the first one in the world, actually. Britain now is no longer a manufacturing country, it's a financial capitalist country. You're right. But however, Saudi Arabia goes to war, many Islamic countries go to war, and they're still making profits. Saudi Arabia makes huge profits from oil, etc. So capitalism, yes, can be financial or manufacturing. The present capitalist system in this country and in Europe and in America is neoliberal capitalism, where everything is privatized. Everything is privatized. That's a neoliberal capitalism, along with financial capitalism and manufacturing capitalism, are all capitalism, and they've all got their very bad points, but they're all, as far as I'm concerned, should be destroyed as a system.
Thank you for bringing that up. I think it is, as you rightly correctly pointed out, the capitalism does have many facets and many hats, but capitalism fundamentally is not about money. It's about its need to destroy the planet that we live on and the human being. That's why the capitalist invests in things like oil, war, because war and oil does destroy the planet. And again, the most critical part which needs to be talked about is we don't have any vote over that. When we try to stop the global warming, we're laughed at and called terrorists, by the way. When we tried to stop the Iraq war, we're laughed at and ridiculed, and they just decided, they being the capitalists, to create a load of lies to go and bomb a load of Muslims. And that meant the capitalists could keep building bombs to bomb more Muslims because capitalists had deemed Muslims the enemy of our planet. This is capitalism, and just to reassert a point, cobalt is a rare material. That's why it only happens in very few places on this planet. Lithium, again, is nearly as common as sand, silicon. So, anyone would like to elaborate the last point?
I had a last point. I'm trying to remember what it was, but
anybody else like to contribute to why we're destroying this planet? You've been listening. Would you like to have a?
I agree with everything that was said. It's to do with greed and capitalism, and
I think that we're pretty powerless to challenge the people who are running the world. If we're not united, if we're not organised, if people are not informed, then we're pretty powerless. And a lot of people sort of are more interested in other things, rather than concentrating on political issues. So for the time being, I do think that we're pretty powerless as the masses to challenge the people that are in power. I mean, when I was growing up, it was who wants to be a millionaire. Now we're living on a planet where there's plenty of billionaires, and these people are extraordinarily powerful.
So I would actually end up liking to agree with you, but in this one little phrase and this is a quote from Prophet Muhammad, he said, we get the leaders we deserve. So because of our lack of interest in the world and lack of willingness to form a community, we the masses are become weaker than the few 0.001% who control all of us. And it's our fault for not getting together because we're too selfish.
Do you agree with that statement? Do you agree with that statement? We get the leaders we deserve.
I mean, several people have said that. Montaigne, and several people have said that. But I'm not sure where you're linking religion into this. Is this what?
No, let's just concentrate on. Let's just focus on the planet, not the religion.
Okay, so a lot of people here are saying that we are victims. I'm saying that who are we victims of? Our leaders, right? Okay, but where do those leaders come from? How comes they're all so powerful and we, the masses, like if we had a fight and there was one leader, hand-on-hand battle, right? How could that one person beat 1,000, possibly millions of people? It's because of our lack of ability to unite. Anyway.
Before you go, can you quickly tell us about some organisations who are actually out there trying to save the planet?
So I would say Islam is a very powerful force because it's the fastest growing religion and that unites humanity, and I am part of the revival of Islam, and we are united and powerful despite our small numbers. So that's an answer.
I'd like to add to that. I think that the majority of human beings that I know and on the planet are also very engaged in trying to stop the world being destroyed by a very tiny minority of people. And unfortunately, as this gentleman pointed out, that the majority are denied any political voice, will, or indeed encouragement to actually help save the planet.
Your point that we're responsible for our own problems is not true, because the society we live under, the capitalist economic and political and social society, is controlled by a very small amount of very powerful people. The media, television, all the propaganda is directed from above, and we as human beings are victims of that propaganda. We cannot help ourselves because we are psychologically slaves to that society.
And we are addicted to money that they forced upon us. So what choice does an addict have?
Exactly, it's not that.
What choice does an addict have?
So I think I've made my point, and I'm very happy that, thank you very much for everybody's participation, for all the different points of view. That was very interesting. The viewers can make their own comments or thoughts. Please do on the video. Go to bigquestionsanswer.com, go to the video, be on the main page. Talk about the blog. And you introduce the blog. Go on.
Oh yeah, so we're just literally starting a blog called speakerscorneronline.wordpress.com.
Yeah.
And so we literally just got it up and running, so don't expect too much just yet, but save that webpage in your mind, and please go and visit speakerscorneronline.wordpress.com, and we will be posting just snippets, updates and thoughts and musings upon Speaker's Corner as a whole.
We'll post a link in the description of the video to that website so you can check it out.
Thank you very much for listening. Please subscribe. It's so important that you subscribe and mention other channels.
Yes, so we've got a brilliant channel called Universal Truth, which I would say kind of demonstrates to you what the general output is from Speaker's Corner. Would you like to describe it? I think there's a lot of the craziness as well as some of the good discussion. But thank you very much to the cameraman as well, and thank you very much for all the participation. We value that.
Thank you as well to the camera. I'd like to add to what great work you've done and under such trying heat situations as well. My name is Dust, and I'm now the dust is settled. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you.
No, thank